Trump appears on the verge of trading the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz for not very much. The White House confirmed the general outlines of an agreement. That's the memorandum of understanding we keep hearing about. But hasten to add, Trump has not yet signed off on it. But if this thing goes forward, the memorandum would extend the existing ceasefire, which has its own kinetic infirmities. I mean, both sides keep shooting at each other. And put off for a future date negotiations on ending, and by what means, Iran's nuclear program. Iran, if this goes forward, might even obtain some sanctions relief. For what it's worth, the Iranians denied agreement has been reached. This may be a breakthrough or more muddle. So, Iran would get money from oil sales via a reopened strait, possible sanctions relief, or unfreezing of assets, and Trump would get an Iranian promise not to pursue nuclear weapons, details to come later, and a reopened strait, which we should remind ourselves was open when this war began. At today's White House briefing, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked over and over if a deal was done. He could not say, and we pick it up there with our colleague Nancy Cordes at the White House. Nancy, take it away.
Major, it was clear that the Secretary of the Treasury, as he said multiple times, did not want to get out ahead of the president. In other words, no one knows exactly what President Trump is going to do and whether he is going to sign off on this draft agreement. But White House officials did confirm that it exists, did confirm that he's taking a look at it, and he's deciding, and there are indications that Iranian leaders are deciding as well. What the Treasury Secretary told me today is that any language in this draft agreement about either waiving sanctions on Iran or unfreezing some of their assets would be phased in over time if Iran reached certain milestones. So, for example, if the Strait of Hormuz was reopened as laid out in the MOU by the Iranians, then perhaps some of the sanctions on them would be waived. But beyond that, he didn't want to go into a whole lot of detail because, as we have seen, the president has kind of gone back and forth on whether he even thinks that this is a good deal, whether it's a great deal, and whether he'd even be willing to sign something if it wasn't a great deal. And so no one wants to really, to put pen to paper and say, here's exactly what's in an agreement if the agreement isn't going to be approved by the president at the end of the day.
The Treasury Secretary also made some news about Oman. He said he talked to a significant official within the Omani government today about something the president said yesterday at the cabinet meeting, which was, if Oman doesn't behave, words to this effect, we're going to have to bomb them. What did the Treasury Secretary say about that conversation?
Right. He said that the president is simply making it clear that the Strait of Hormuz needs to be open with the free entry and exit of commercial vessels going forward, and that no one will control it. And he said that the Omanis understand that the president wasn't actually threatening to bomb them, that it was some hyperbole. But certainly it was concerning to the Omanis. We know that from our reporting at CBS News, that this longtime ally of the United States, its leaders were pretty concerned yesterday when the president was asked about this Iranian report claiming that that going forward after this war, Oman and Iran would basically share control of the strait and impose, if not tolls, then some kind of fee for ships to go in and out. This was something that was coming from the Iranians. President Trump was asked about it at his cabinet meeting yesterday, and that's when he said, Oman wouldn't do that because they know that I bombed them. And it now appears that White House officials are looking to walk that threat back.
Hyperbole. That's how you say it. Nancy Cordes, thank you. I'll remember that next time. Here with me now, CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata and CBS News national security analyst and host of the School of War podcast, Aaron MacLean. Charlie, I mentioned in my own cheeky way the ceasefire having kinetic infirmities. That means people keep shooting at each other. We have some reports still trying to be confirmed of something that's happened just in the last couple of hours.
Right. Kinetic infirmities is a great way to describe it because we have seen an escalation in the past 24 hours. And just moments before I arrived in a rush, I was on to Central Command. That's the military organization in charge of that region in the Middle East. There are reports of explosions. They could be firing warning shots along the strait because this is a tense situation that they've been in. Also, a report that Iran may have launched a ballistic missile. Where this is important is in the past 24 hours, CENTCOM officials that I spoke to say there have been multiple attacks. So there have been drone attacks, 5 that were launched and intercepted. They also hit one before it was launched, so that makes 6. Drones are one thing. A ballistic missile is another. So they sent a ballistic missile into Kuwait. It was Kuwaiti forces that intercepted that. So this is next level. This is where CENTCOM is saying, well, wait a minute, this is a clear breach of our ceasefire. There have been tit for tat. The United States, as you know, last weekend fired on parts of the Strait of Hormuz and around the Strait of Hormuz. These were called self-defense maneuvers to defend U.S. forces in the region. But we have seen a clear escalation, and we'll have to get more details about exactly what's unfolding now.
And Aaron, this is clearly a situation where the United States could be provoked, but is trying not to be provoked because it's not obviously a ceasefire. When firing is going on, firing hasn't ceased, but they're trying to hold this place open to see if negotiations can gain a foothold.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the president clearly does not want to return to full-scale military action. He threatens to on a pretty regular basis, but his actions since
because
April
if the U.S. wanted to be provoked, there'd be plenty, to Charlie's word, a ballistic missile is provocative enough.
Absolutely. Firing a ballistic missile at Kuwait's a pretty clear violation. They fired a bunch of missiles and drones at the UAE, 2 weeks ago now, during the Project Freedom 36-hour period. So there are plenty of pretexts, if that's what you're looking for, to restart military action. But restarting military action would lead to Iranian escalation, strikes across the region, more conflict, energy prices going higher. The president doesn't want to do that.
Right. Charlie, what do we know about the composition of U.S. forces? Do they remain as robust as they were in late February when all of this began?
Yeah, very much so. So the centerpiece of the strike group that's out there now is the Abe Lincoln Strike Group. With it, maybe a dozen or so guided missile destroyers. There are dozens of squadrons of attack fighters, F-35s, F-18 fighter jets that are part of that. So their missile launch capacity and their aerial capacity to launch airstrikes is there. And not only there, Major, less than a week ago, we were all on standby to go to a special report because it looked like it was about to start up again. And I spoke to military officials there. Of course, they're not going to show their cards. There's obviously operational security issues involved there. But they were on a knife edge through Memorial Day weekend. So right up until a couple of days ago, they're ready to launch. And I said, like, 24 hours? They said, no, now, like right now, as soon as that goes. And it could, because when we have seen a return to military activity has sometimes been during talks with Iran. Right. That's what we've seen in the past. So, there's precedence there as well.
Aaron, what does this look like to you right now?
Disorientation. I'm tempted to write an absurdist play in the spirit of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. I'm going to call it Waiting for the Deal, because it feels like every single day we're told there's some leak to the press that the deal is imminent. Today, the news was that the text had actually been agreed between the United States and Iran. The Iranians, by the way, there's Iranian state media denying that. There's a bit of confusion about it, but that's what came from the White House today.
Is some of that being driven by diplomats in the region who are hopeful that this can get resolved?
Or personnel in the White House who are hopeful that it can get resolved diplomatically.
You're detecting that as well.
Absolutely, even though the president has not yet signed off. One of the reasons why he probably hasn't signed off is that when we finally get a look at what the details of this document involves, I have a feeling that there are going to be a number of Republican politicians, Iran hawks, who are going to be very unhappy with what's in it, and the president has to contemplate how much pain he's willing to put up with on Capitol Hill, amongst other places, if he agrees to this.
Charlie, real quick. A couple of 3 weeks ago, there was this conversation about interceptors and our ability to intercept, either help our allies in the region or do it ourselves. Any visibility on that?
That has been an issue. We have learned since that the United States had supported Israel in the defense of Israel with a lot of its interceptors. We kind of knew that on the ground. I was there at the time when that war was unfolding. And I spoke to Israelis who shared with us that, yes, in addition to that Arrow 3, which is kind of comparable to what the United States military can provide in terms of the larger missiles coming in, yes. I put that question to a few officials, some on the record, some off the record, who said this isn't an issue for here now yet in this particular conflict. And they've taken the opportunity for this ceasefire to reposition, rearm, put munitions where they need to be. Now, further ahead, has that taken resources? It takes a long time to rebuild these things, and they fired a lot of them, not only in protection of U.S. forces, but in protection of Israel, too. So they are far from saying anything about being exhausted at this point, but it is going to become critical mass.
It's a numbers game down the road, for sure.
Absolutely.
Charlie D'Agata, Aaron MacLean, always great stuff. Thank you so very much.